I've been playing a lot of Loki in Marvel Rivals and getting MVP almost every game with him, so here are 5 tips to becoming a godlike Loki player. Tip number 1, if you die as Loki and still have clones in the fight, use your rune ability as soon as you respawn, or at the right time if you see your teammates struggling on the point. The runes will still spawn above your clones on the point even if you're way back at your spawn, and your teammates can walk over to them for heals even if you aren't there. And remember, your clones shoot everywhere that you're shooting at, so even if you're walking back to spawn and just firing around or firing at your own feet, your teammates can run into those beams for heals. Tip number 2, really think about lines of sight when placing your clones. You don't want them so far back or behind cover that the projectiles aren't hitting anyone or they're just shooting walls, and you especially don't want your runes to spawn way far away and be useless for your teammates. Having them in the fight but also spread out just a bit is almost always a better idea. And staying far back yourself and shooting through your teammates is a really good idea because your splash damage won't actually affect your teammates if they don't need healing. It'll go right through them and hit the enemies that are on the other side, giving you ult charge, doing damage, and then once your teammates are low, your projectiles will actually explode on them. So just remember that you can shoot straight through your teammates. And while you're in the back line, not too far back of course, remember that you can use your clones as cover. They all have 250 HP just like you. Walking into them, hiding behind them actually works pretty well. Tip number 3, keeping a clone held for right before you cast your runes ability is a really good idea that can save you and your team in a pinch. Just place a clone right on top of your team and then place your healing runes down, and you just buy your team a few seconds of basically invulnerability. I see way too many Lokis tap their rune ability and then start spawning clones when you really should place your clones right before it. Tip number 4, place your clones in high ground positions so you can quickly swap into them to get to a new area. This also forces your enemy to look up during the fight to deal with you raining splash damage down onto them. And speaking of swapping into your clones, you don't need to look at a clone to swap into them. You just press F and it'll swap to the nearest one, which is just an incredible way to get out of the fight. Tip number 5, decide in advance who you will swap into for your ultimate. And remember, place your runes down and then swap, because those will stay up for a second and heal your teammates, while you most likely just turned into another damage character and left your team without a second healer or without one at all. My personal favorites to swap into for a team wipe is Storm, Iron Man, Scarlet Witch, Jeff, and Punisher. Swapping into a Mantis or Luna for their ults can also lead to some insane healing potential, especially if it's right before or after a Mantis or Luna ult on your team for double the survivability. Honorable mention, the Hela team up is insane. You can get revived an infinite number of times without cooldown if you have a Hela on your team.